Documents register business transactions and other important events we need to remember. Their attributes and tabular sections contain complete and exhaustive information about each event. But this primary document information cannot be used as is for every task that might occur. For example, before we sell the product, we need to make sure we have enough of it left. If we calculated the amount of Pringles from the documents, we would need to scan all the purchase documents and sum up all Pringles we found. Then we would need to scan all the sales documents and subtract all Pringles we have sold. The problem here is that it's slow, and it's gonna get slower and slower over time as the number of documents grows. So the idea is to perform all necessary calculations in advance during the writing of the document and store the result someplace we can just read it from whenever we need. This is what we call deposting. Deposting basically makes the copy of the document data to registers that perform all calculations and store the results. We choose the register type and structure depending on the task. Therefore, we usually create a separate register for each specific task we need to speed up. I'll talk you through the registers, their purposes and structures in the next 2 episodes. Now let's take a closer look at deposting. Given that other tasks do not use the document data directly, we can think of the save command as if it saves the draft. The document can contain a lot of records, and we might want to save it many times while filling it up. After we're done, we want to publish it for the outside world, so we post it. This is when the document's data gets copied to the registers. The necessary results get calculated, and other tasks can now see the changes in the data they use. Of course, there might be documents we don't need to post. For example, we still have no task that uses working shifts data and which needs to be speeded up. So we can just disable the posting, and there will be no post button in the interface for this document anymore. Sometimes we post documents unconditionally. For example, purchase documents just register transactions no matter what. There is no condition to be met before the document is allowed to post its data. But there are cases when we need to check some conditions before we post the document. The sales document is a good example of this because it cancels its posting if this event handler sees that there are not enough products left. The thing about this condition is that we don't want to check it in some cases. Bear with me, I've got the point here. Let's say yesterday night, just before the closing, I started to fill out the sales document when a power outage happened. I managed to service the customer who happened to be in the store by checking the availability of the products with the help of my flashlight and a few unsavory remarks about BC Hydro. But I had no chance to finish the sales document. Next morning I'm back and I want to fix it. Do I need to check if I can afford to finalize this transaction? No, I don't. It's already finalized in the real world. I have no options but reflecting it in the system. It means that sometimes we need to distinguish the work in real time when we need to make all the checking, from registering some done deals from the past when we don't need to check anything. This is what these settings does. It switches this distinction on or off. Let me show you what happens when this option is on. I'm setting a breakpoint here and opening this document. Note that its date is the same as the current system date. Here we are at the breakpoint and the current value of this mode parameter is real time. Now I'm changing the date of the document to yesterday's date. And the mode value is now regular, which means that we are posting a backdated document and do not need to check anything. So let's cancel the inventory check in this case. I need to write the register's data, but I don't need this query checking the inventory balance, so this is where I'm going to write my code. Add in the comment. Now let me check the mode parameter type, and it's the document posting mode. Okay, now I'm just going to type this. If the mode is not set to real time, I'm exiting the event handler like this. And by the way, let's not forget to delete this dangerous piece of code from episode 2. So, this is what the platform does when real-time posting is enabled. First, it checks the document's date. If the date is the same as the current system date, it sets the mode parameter to real-time, telling the posting event handler that all necessary checks have to be made. Note that only the date is taken into account. Time is just ignored, and now I'm going to show you why. Remember this calculation? This is how many Pringles we have left. Now, let's say two different users are opening the app and creating two sales documents. The first one wants to sell 15 cans of Pringles, and the second one wants to sell 10. What exactly should happen if they both click post at the same time? The platform definitely cannot post both these documents, because there are not enough Pringles left. On the other hand, each of these documents could be posted if it was alone. So this is what happens in this case. One of the users clicks a button a split second earlier, and the document is posted successfully. This is when the document gets timestamped, because at this exact moment is when there were still enough Pringles for this transaction. 1 second later would be too late, and this is exactly what happens to the second document. It gets automatically moved to the next second, where only 9 cans of Pringles are left, so it receives the error message and no timestamp. As soon as we reduce the number of cans, the document gets successfully posted and timestamped. If I repost the document within the current date, its timestamp will be moved along according to the current system time, like this. This is how the platform timestamps documents during the real-time posting. It sets the time at the moment the document is posted. It distributes documents to different seconds, so it's always clear what follows what. And it resets the timestamp to the current time on reposting.